welcome back to Tay Rock Rockin' Well, the podcast. I am your host, Taylor Rockwell, and today I am back with another solo podcast. However, I am recording on audio and I'm recording on video. Now, a couple things. One, okay, here's the thing. When I think about having a podcast, I think, I want a studio and I want to make it nice and I want these guests to be able to come to a studio. And then life kind of happens and I've been moving and everything I own is in storage units right now. And normally I have really nice microphones, and right now I'm just mic'd up on this little tiny thing, which it works. But what I'm kind of figuring out is, I kind of let things go, time go, without actively doing things. For example, we're moving, so I haven't been wanting to record podcasts as much because I feel like, I don't have my recording equipment, and it just kind of feels a little DIY when I'm recording on my iPhone and, using my mic that I use for YouTube videos, and I don't know, it kind of just has been making me have excuses that I just don't appreciate for myself. So I've been trying to get out of those excuses and just pull full blown, make sure I'm recording the podcast, make sure I'm making content I want to make, which has been weird because I've been having a lot of anxiety about the content I've been creating. For example, I've recorded podcasts that I just didn't like, so I didn't put out. And then I had a couple weeks where I didn't record podcasts or put one out, and then I have anxiety about not putting out podcasts and not staying consistent. I've made YouTube videos where I've recorded all of this content in hopes and, desires to edit and put to YouTube, and then I don't. And then I have anxiety again about how I have all this footage and that too much time has passed by, where now if I upload, the old content, that it doesn't make sense with my current content. So this is kind of what I'm doing to move forward from that. I decided I'm going to kind of take off all this pressure that I'm putting on myself to have a nice fancy studio before I start making video podcasts, and to make sure I'm always in a nice, perfectly quiet, soundproof area before I record, when in reality I'm in my car and I get a lot of work done in my car. I don't know what it is about my car. It puts me in the mindset of okay, it's work time, reply to your emails, do your projects. I feel inspired in my car. I feel motivated in my car. So why not just record a podcast in my car? I'm trying to just get myself out of making excuses. And I always really want to do video content and record myself making these podcasts. So I'm just going to do it. It might be DIY for a while, and I appreciate those who watch. But until then, I'm going to grow, and I'm going to stop putting these weird expectations on myself to be 100% perfect 100% of the time, when the YouTube channel and podcasting in particular are just things that I do as passion projects. And I do a lot of things for video creations that are not passion projects, they're work. I make a lot of content for the job that I do. And, the podcast and YouTubing are the two things that I do just as passion projects for me. And so the fact that they're starting to feel like work, or I'm getting this anxiety that I'm not doing a good enough job, I just want to let that go. And so I want to preface with, hi, how is everybody? And I'm making this quick disclaimer that I'm just going to be making this episode just me and you, the listener and you. And I'm going to be a little bit more lighthearted on what this looks like, and I'm just going to start creating more for me and recording more for me, recording more for you, and stop having this perfect image of, once my life is this way, then I'll start recording, or once my life is that way, then I'll start making video platform content. And it's just why not start now? I always am preaching and being just start, and then somehow I'm not taking my own advice. So here I am taking my own advice. I felt like I just started with a huge rant. So let me back it up a little bit and let me say hi. How is everybody? How are you this week? How is Taylor this week? I'm gonna be honest, okay? I'm just being honest here. My energy is off. My energy is off. My aura is off. My work ethic is off. Everything's off right now. And it's been tough. But I have my little iPad of things that I wanted to talk about in this podcast because I did do some cool stuff. So I talked about wanting to try audio and video. That's what I'm going to do. First and foremost, audio and video is here. I will now be moving on, making most of my podcast video and just posting it on my YouTube channel casually. It might get 1 view, it might get 2 views, or 3. Regardless of how many views it has, I'm going to try my best to not let that be the definitive measure of my success. I'm going to make and continue to make these podcasts for me and my listeners that listen every week. Thank you, by the way. There's about 40, okay? So right now there's about 40 listeners that listen consistently every week. So small amount of people, but when I think about putting 40 people in a room and talking to them every week, kind of crazy. So I don't know how many people are going to watch the video content, and that's fine. But I'm realizing that you have to start somewhere, and you know, I had a YouTube channel that I used to do when I was a freshman in college, and I always just think if I would have continued to be consistent with that, what that platform would be like today. And you know, I just don't want to look back another 5 years from now and be like, well, what if I would have started then? You know, I just want to start now and be to where I want to be. So again, I feel like this first episode is going to start off as a little bit ranty, because I'm kind of going through it. I'm not going to lie. My energy, it's off. My motivation, it's off. But I'm here, and at the end of this podcast, I do have something to provide to you, though. Something cool. So anyway, let me refer back to my notes. I want to be more real on this podcast. And, okay, here's the thing. I don't feel like I'm not real on this podcast. I'm very honest and vulnerable. Except my good friend, Mindful Maddie, she just released a podcast, and she was actually a guest on one of my podcasts. I don't remember what episode number it was, but go check it out. Mindful Maddie, she's a life coach, she's great. She started her own podcast, and I was listening to her podcast, and I was just so inspired and honestly in awe of how authentic she can be, just being her, and just being honest and vulnerable, and I don't know, she just was really I thought I was being honest and vulnerable on my podcast until I listened to her talk, and it kind of inspired me to be a little bit more open, and I don't exactly know what that looks like yet, but I'm going to try, because I do feel like I hold back some things on the podcast, or I feel uncomfortable sharing some things because of, you know, some people listening. My family listens to my podcast, some friends listen to my podcast, and sometimes it hurts me to think about what their thoughts are listening to this podcast. However, that's what I'm realizing, that I need to just be more authentically me and not cater myself to everybody in my life, and kind of be more accepting of who I am, even in all categories, in all aspects of my life, just being more accepting of who I am. So, so on the more authentic side of things, I started therapy. Okay, and let's talk about that. I started therapy 4 or 5 weeks ago now, and that was really hard for me to start because, one, you know, I've done therapy a lot when I was a kid, and most of the time it was in a negative connotation in terms of, oh, your parents are separating, therapy. Oh, you're a teenager, therapy, you know, and it just seemed like it was never something I wanted to do. It was something that was forced and put on me when something went wrong, and it was just kind of, overall, it created a bad relationship with me and therapy and the resources it can provide. And for about a year, I kept saying, oh, I want to go to therapy, but I was unready because I felt as if, I don't know what I felt. I just felt like I could do it myself, or what's the point? I kind of felt awkward paying somebody to listen to me talk, and I kind of felt like, well, what could they do that I couldn't do? But then at the same time, having those negative thoughts about therapy, but also having the desire to go to therapy, was a confusing time for myself. You know, I wanted to go to therapy, but then somehow I talked bad about therapy and convinced myself that it wasn't worth it. So the time came and I was like, you know what? I think I honestly want to give myself an honest go around on therapy, and I'm going to figure out how to get my mindset to be that way. So, sorry for the camera movements again, just going with it. So I was like, I want to go to therapy, but let me get my head frame in the right spot. So I took the time to really just accept that I wanted therapy, and being in therapy was what I wanted. So I started therapy, and mostly I started for setting correct boundaries in my life. And I feel as if I had bad boundaries with some people in my life in terms of my friendships, in terms of the relationships I had with some family members, and I don't know. And I'm only in week 5, and the more I go, the more I realize I have a lot more to work through than I thought, and that's okay. But more importantly, I'm just ready. You know, I just feel like I suffer from anxiety a lot my entire life. I've been such an anxious little person. But, you know, I always say, like, my anxiety is kind of like my weakness and my strength, because I'm such a go-getter because of how much anxiety I have. It's probably like a high-functioning anxiety type thing. But it also holds me back in life in a lot of ways. And truthfully, I just want to deal with it. I just want to deal with my stress and trauma as a kid, in current day, in my past. I want to really heal from those things. And I really just want to be better, and I'm sick of making excuses for myself, such as I want to do these things like make video content, make podcasts, you know, the way I want to do it, have my business be the way I want to be, hold myself in a way I want to hold myself, and letting anxiety and fear hold me back. And I'm not sure if crying on a video podcast and having my voice be shaky, or a video of me crying on the internet, is exactly what I want. But again, I'm just letting go of like what a podcast should be. Right? Like, who am I to say you shouldn't cry on a podcast? Like, I don't know, you know? So I'm just trying to let go of what I think expectations are for myself, and I'm just gonna be me. Like, in this moment, I'm just crying because that is what I feel, and that's okay. But regardless of that, I'm sorry I'm crying. But also I'm not sorry I'm crying, because that's just me. So, working on also not just apologizing for just being me. Okay, so anyway, I have little notes today because I knew they were just big big topics. But like I said, setting boundaries was why I went to therapy. And it's been hard because I went to therapy, you know, for 2 weeks, and I lightly said, this is why I'm in therapy, this is what I want to work on. And, you know, we didn't really get far into therapy until I was tested with a relationship in my life, a friendship, more particularly, that I had to actually exercise and implement boundaries. And I had to, without saying too much of the details or logistics of things, I had a friend in my life who I felt like was taking advantage of me and using me, and I just thought to myself, it can't be true. There's no way, they're my friend. They care about me. They just need me right now. Things will be different later. They'll come around. I don't know. I just made excuses. I just feel like I'm just like a giver at heart, and I want to always help people. And the thought of somebody just taking advantage of that never really crossed my mind, and then when it did, it was unfamiliar and uncomfortable for me to think about. So I'm in therapy now. We've talked a little bit about what my goal is, and I decided that I wanted to actually take action. I'm sitting in my life right now, and I want to be in control of things I can be in control in. If somebody in my life is really draining me, like entirely draining me and giving me anxiety and making me feel uncomfortable, that's not really somebody I want in my life anyway, and I have the control to remove them. And so I had to practice my first time in my life setting a boundary with somebody. Not the first time in my life, but the first time I noticeably was like, you have to set a boundary with this person. So I took action steps to set a boundary with this person, and it doesn't feel good, I'm not gonna lie. I don't feel good, or I'm not like, oh yeah, I made the right decision removing this person from my life and setting a strict boundary, letting them know that like you're no longer welcome kind of in my life. It felt wrong, it felt uncomfortable, and I don't know, I miss that person. I feel like kind of like a breakup, I guess. I'm like mourning the loss of this friendship. But at the same time, I feel really light, and I feel really relieved not to have this person in my life anymore. And I feel really good about my decision to put me first. And I think it feels so uncomfortable for me to put me first. And that's why maybe this action to create boundaries doesn't feel right yet. But I'm hoping in the future, when I become more used to and familiar and comfortable and confident with putting myself first, that it'll feel better, because I'm learning that even though I'm sad this person's not in my life, I'm learning that now. Oh, Mindful Maddie. I called Mindful Maddie my friend. We're friends in real life, I promise. We're not just, podcasting hosts that keep in contact here and there. We're real friends. So I called her seeking advice, and she reminded me of something, and this really has stuck with me, and I really use this a lot. But she reminded me that boundaries are in place, and it seems so obvious, She said this, and I was like, oh, obviously, but it's never like, I've never really thought about what the definition of a boundary is or what it really means until she just, wrote it out on paper for me. But she was like, a boundary is just a place between you and another person, so that way they can no longer you no longer give them the opportunity to do the things that they're doing that are hurting you. And she's like, you're not putting boundaries in place against the other person or to hurt them. You're simply putting them in place to preserve your energy. And it sounds so obvious now, but I guess I never really thought about what a boundary really meant in a definition form until she said it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I put this boundary up, and now this friend can no longer make me feel used or make me feel the ways I did. And regardless if those were their intentions or not, to use me or make me feel these ways or whatever, I did feel those ways. And I did let them know I felt those ways multiple times, but I continued to feel that way. So I think it was necessary to put that boundary in place. I wasn't prepared for the friendship to end entirely, which hurt, but I'm okay and I'm accepting it, and I think that's fine, you know? But more importantly, I don't know, I'm just learning to step into the person I want to be. And with that, I don't want to be a person that people feel like it's okay to lie to and take advantage of and use and expect from me just because I can give. And, you know, because of that, I'm putting that boundary in place and I'm kind of just going through it. And I think that is kind of why my energy feels off, because I have been in therapy. I'm kind of low now that I'm in therapy. I kind of feel sad. Just because I'm realizing that I'm probably going to have to deal with a lot before it gets better. But that's okay. Because I really, really just want to be the person that I want to be. And I don't know. I just want to put myself first. So, I don't know. I've never cried on a podcast. I'm not going to lie. Listening to this back and publishing is probably going to feel not good. Or watching myself cry on video and then putting it on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to feel good, and I'm kind of like not second guessing it. I'm just kind of just going with the flow, and I'll probably feel good about it now, and then a month from now be like, holy shit, you need to take this down. But I'm trying not to. I just want to be me, you know? Like, I just want to step out of, you know, like, I don't really care what people think. Like, that's not really it, but in a way I do. Like, in a way, I don't want people to be annoyed by listening to me cry on a podcast that they used to enjoy, or not watch my videos because it's annoying to watch me cry. But at the same time, I'm learning that that's fine, because I'm not making these videos for those people. And I have to remind myself that I'm making videos for me and the people that enjoy watching them. So, I'm learning to also talk kinder to myself and be more present. So, anyway, I'm only 5 weeks in and I have a lot to work on, and we barely dipped our toe in boundaries, and I feel like I have a billion other things I need to work on. So, that's my journey, and I will keep you in the loop, and I would like to promise that I won't cry in the future, but I'm not too sure. So, that is that. Let me check the notes real quick. So, I didn't really expect to go all about therapy. I just was going to talk about how I'm working on boundaries. And then that all kind of spiraled. But that's okay. But what I originally planned for this video to be from the get-go, before my little intro, was, okay, on a lighter note, I don't think I'll cry about this. Maybe I will. But on a lighter note, so, I ran 100 miles in 31 days in the month of July 2022. I mean, okay, it doesn't sound like that much to me now. At the time, I was like, 100 miles, wow! And I attempted this challenge one time before, and it was when I was moving, like when I was actively moving my house, and that was just too chaotic. I got to, I don't even know, like mile 50 or 60. It definitely was not over halfway, so it was under 50 miles, because I didn't even make it halfway, so mile 50 around there. And I didn't make it, but I was really bummed, because I just felt like that was something I could do, and I just know myself, and I normally don't I don't want to be like, gas myself up, but I normally always hit challenges that I make for myself. And I really wanted to just prove it to myself that I could do it. So I tried it again in July, and I ran 100 miles in the month of July. And, now that I have a little video platform, here's a little screenshot of, every day that I ran miles. So I have, like, the day I ran, like, what day I ran. Then I have how far I ran, how fast I ran, and my average mile. So I'll also post this screenshot on Instagram. So if you're just an audio listener, you can go check out the screenshot on my Instagram, which is Taylor_Rockwell. And you can check it out. So here's the thing. I ran 100 miles, and it was really emotional to do. One, it took a lot of dedication and a lot of obedience for myself to be committed to myself every single day of the week on some regard. And I didn't just want to run 100 miles. I also wanted to close my rings every single day that month, which was very difficult because I didn't run every day. So even on days I didn't run, I would still have to do some type of exercise, like weight training or just walking the dogs or something to make sure I closed all of my rings, which didn't allow for much rest, off days, or recovery days. Honestly, if you think about doing something every single day actively for 31 days, I was tired. And I'm not saying I'm going to do that for the rest of my life because I was approaching burnout by the end of the month. I'm not going to lie to you. However, it's August now, and I really took 2 weeks off. I haven't done anything really physical because I was at pretty much burnout. But now I'm like, really, my body's craving movement. I'm craving, to be back in my group fitness environment. And yeah, so I took the couple weeks off, and now I'm getting back on track. But to go back to running 100 miles, it was a lot of work, and I had a lot of hard days where I would run on the beach, and my average mile was 11 minutes. And then I had like really good days where I was just like on top of the world. I'd run like 5 miles and my average pace would be 8 minutes, and I was just feeling so fast, so light, so good. And I'm kind of just letting myself right now live life. Like, I'm just trying to let myself live and observe. Almost like I'm just having like, not an out-of-body experience, but I'm trying hard to just kind of take away any type of rules or regulations or guidelines on myself of how I think things should be or whatever it is. And I'm trying to just let myself just be me and stop judging me for being me. And then in the meantime, I'm kind of just taking notes. What are things that I like about me? What are things that I wish I could change? What are things that I can change that are in my control? And so running, you have an hour almost every day while you're running to just be by yourself, be with your thoughts, and really just be with you. And so in that time, I've learned a lot about myself, and I'm continuing to learn a lot about myself. Like, I'm sure you can tell right now, I'm not exactly on cloud 9 in my life. Whew, the car just turned off? No way. I need to come back on. I will heat up. Okay. So yeah. I ran 100 miles. First and foremost, I'm really proud of myself. Because here's the thing. I ran 100 miles with a podcast idea in mind. And that's the thing. Okay. This is what makes me feel frustrated. And I just want to say it out loud. I made this podcast idea July 1st or whatever. And it's now, August 16th or something like that. And I wanted to record it like August 1st and really talk about it and let it be like raw moment. And here's the thing, that's what makes me feel frustrated, is I was like, yeah, like when I can find a really good place to sit down and record it, and when I am in the right headspace, or when I can sit down in like a perfect quiet environment and record. And then it prevented me from making the video entirely. I ran 100 miles, mostly for a podcast episode, and just to prove to myself I can do it, and then I didn't make a podcast episode. It took me 2 weeks to sit and record this. And that's what I mean, where I just feel like my anxiety really just holds me back. If I would have recorded the podcast 2 weeks ago, I would have been on my now 3rd podcast talking about something more relevant and frequent in my life right now. So that is why I'm trying to be more casual about things that I like doing, things that are my passion projects, and not necessarily take them down in quality, take them down in quantity. It's nothing like that. I just want to take this weird pressure that I still have a camera and a microphone and I'm still able to record a podcast, and just because it's not perfect doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. So anyway, that was just an example of how I feel that way. So I did run 100 miles, and I did learn a lot. And what I learned the most, I have these ideas while I'm running. Here, let me see. Okay, so I wrote setting your own version of success is, okay, hang on. Setting your own version of success, okay, my notes don't make sense, apparently. But what I'm trying to say is, you can't be successful unless you set your own version of what success looks like, right? So if you don't identify what being successful looks like to you, then you will not ever be successful. So what does success look like to me right now? So current time, success to me looked like running 100 miles. I had to have, they say not to put a number behind success. They don't say you won't be happy until you make $100, or don't put numbers behind your happiness or whatever. But for example, I felt like I could run every day and run 5Ks every day, sure. But does that make me a successful runner? I don't know. To some people, they might think, wow, you can run 3 miles in one day, cool. But then other people are like, so what? And then some people will be like, oh, you ran 10 miles in one day? That's almost, half a marathon. But then other people are like, who cares? So what do I think, And to me, my version of success was, I need to run 100 miles. And once I run 100 miles, then I'm going to feel like, wow, I'm a really good runner. Or, wow, I'm somebody who can really be determined and do something for me. So that was me identifying success. Also, right now, since I'm being so honest about my mental health, I guess right now my idea of success is just to be me. Stop judging myself for being me, letting me express and experience my emotions in real time, and stop feeling guilty for feeling those ways, or ashamed, or embarrassed. If I'm honest with how I'm feeling, somehow that makes me less credible as an entrepreneur, or a podcaster, or a motivator. Those things aren't true. And okay, didn't mean to start this back up again, but I guess right now, I need to be more determined what success looks like in a broad form. Because I guess if I say I just want to be more, live with my emotions, be more authentically myself, then I guess right now I'm crying in my car and I'm being successful at what I want to accomplish. So, I don't know. It's also little things oh, surprise, I'm getting my real estate license. I'm also buying my first piece of investment property, and that's huge to me. I, at first, am an investor. That is what I want to be. When people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's an investor. Everything I do is an investment for myself. I invest in me. My business is an investment for me going to real estate school, me starting to do real estate more serious, me buying my first piece of investment property is huge to me. And I don't even acknowledge it enough of how big of a deal it is. Not even on platforms, but in my day-to-day life, I'm just like so quick to just be like, okay, check. I just need to be more me and more setting goals and then celebrating those goals and stop just like go. So the whole point of me running 100 miles for myself was to identify what my version of success looks like, and to me that was a number of miles in 31 days, and I did it. And you know what, it was hard because I was ahead halfway through the month, and then the other half of the month I was behind, and I ran almost 10 miles in one day, the day before the 31st, to try to catch up. And I ran 10 miles in one day. I might as well have just ran a half marathon at that point. But I did it. Most importantly, I did it. Doesn't matter how I did it. So, really proud of me. And, I don't know. I guess what I taught myself was that setting your version of success and seeing what it looks like, and then hitting it, and then also learning how to celebrate it and actually live in that success and stop belittling myself and feeling like I'm not good enough, or once I have this amount of money, then I'll do this. Once I live here, then I'll do this. Once I do this, then I'll do this. I just want to be present. I want to stop feeling so, I just don't want to be so ungrounded anymore, because that's not the vibe, okay? Like, let's be true. Like, I have one life. I have so many days. And what's the point of living those days feeling anxious? And I don't experience that much depression, but I don't experience that much depression sometimes, but for the most part, I am just a heaping ball of anxiety 99% of the time. And, like, what's the point? You know? Like, I'm not gonna say just stop being anxious. That's not really the answer. But the answer for me is to, you don't like being anxious? Stop not doing anything about it. How about that? Like, for me, I'm like, go to therapy, deal with your shit, figure out what your version of success looks like, Taylor. This is how you don't like how you are currently, well, how do you want to look like? You know, who do you want to be? And how are you going to be that person, Tay? Like, how are you going to be that person? And to me, it's by taking the first step to put myself in therapy, to be more honest with myself, to start treating myself nicer, and to start celebrating my doings a lot harder, because I don't celebrate anything I do, ever. If anything, it just feels like, oh, you graduated college. Cool. You should. That's what everybody does. But it's not. Not everybody graduates college. Like, why did I just gloss right over that? Like, I did have a moment of gratitude and a moment of excitement, and then I just let it all go. And then I'm like, whatever. But it's just like, it doesn't need to be whatever, you know? Like, I mean, I plan on doing a lot. I'm about to buy my first piece of investment real estate at the age of 23. I'm so proud of myself. But it's so hard to acknowledge how proud of I am, or just hide it, or just treat it like nothing. And I do that with a lot of things in my life. And I don't want to do that anymore. So, because I don't want to do that anymore, I'm taking an action step to no longer do that. I guess, overall, me running 100 miles, I had a whole different podcast episode in mind when I first did the 100 miles. It was supposed to be, like, setting your version of success to hit it, or something like that. But, again, taking the expectation off of myself, being more authentically me, and just doing me better than anybody else can do me. Or, you know what I mean? Like, nobody can do it the way Taylor does it. So why do I hold myself to this weird standard of how Taylor should do it? If I'm just Taylor, then I'm just doing it. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it here. I don't really know if this was much of a podcast episode that you could benefit from entirely, because I don't feel like I was, like, preaching, or, like, I learned this lesson, and here's what you could take away from it. But if anything, I'm learning a lot about myself. And I feel like I want to take you with the journey of me learning a lot about myself. And I want to take you on this journey of me bettering myself and feeling, I just want to be a better version of me. And I want to take you on this journey. And I hope it motivates you to figure out, what does your version of success look like? What do you want to be different? And how are you going to take control to be different? And just do it. Because, I'm realizing my life, I'm getting older. I realize, when you're a kid, you look up and you're like, oh, I have so much life to live. And not that I feel too old or anything, but I'm realizing that I don't want to look back and feel like, yeah, life would have been good if I just got control of my anxiety, It's just I don't know. Before I go on another tangent, that's where I am. Tell me how you feel. What did you think? Do we care that my video podcast is recorded in my Tesla? It's a good background. It's cute. I mean, look, I have a lake right there. Can you even see it? Oh, yeah. There's a little lake right there. That was my view. Who could be sad? What's a better place to work on yourself than right at the lake in your Tesla? I mean, come on, Taylor. You're good, Tay. You got this. So anyway, thank you for listening. What did you think of the video podcast? If you're listening on audio, message me at Tayrock. Message me at Taylor_Rockwell. What did you think? Was it annoying listening to me cry? If it was, please don't tell me. Just don't tell me. Instead, send me a purple heart and I'll know what it means. But yes, thank you for listening. I'm going to try to just be more consistent because I want to be more consistent. And the only way I'm going to be more consistent if I'm just authentically myself and stop trying to always be a certain version of me every single week, when that's not the point of evolution at all. If I want to evolve as a person, I can't be the same person for every single week. So, anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate it if you got this far, and I'll see you next week. Bye.